Hi everyone, it's Kate and my topic is dyslexia. This is when the students have trouble reading because they could switch words around. They also have trouble distinguishing letters because they reverse them and B's could look like D's. They also have trouble reading symbols. 5 to 10% of the population has dyslexia, so it is important to know how to teach students with this learning disorder. There are many causes of dyslexia. There is a higher likelihood of having dyslexia if a family member has it. This affects the genes that control language and reading in the brain. Low birth weight is another factor. That is because less energy is available for building the brain. Premature birth is also a factor because the brain has less time to develop. Exposure to drugs or alcohol in the womb also contribute to developing dyslexia. My teaching strategy is differentiation. This is when work is modified to help students understand the material in a personalized way. Okay, so one way to differentiate is by using a bookmark. So, for example, I have this Harry Potter book, and say a student was reading this page, they could just hold the bookmark so they could just focus on one line at a time. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to do a good job. At one line at a time. Or if that's still overwhelming because you can still see like the bottom half, the student can take a piece of paper so they could just really focus on that one sentence. And it's probably annoying and stressful to like have to do it one line at a time, but I think if they slow down, it would help them, and it would be less overwhelming to see all those words. Another strategy you can use for a student with dyslexia, so right here is just like a normal piece of paper with the instructions on it. And if you give the student a paper with just bigger font, it would help them focus on each word more and make it easier for them to read, and it's not so close together. Maybe double space it, and that will help the student be less overwhelmed and focus more on each word. So another strategy that I found out to be helpful with a student with dyslexia could be text to talk and audiobook. So text to talk could be helpful on any website that the student is on, where if we're giving instructions, they can highlight the whole entire thing, double click it, and then scroll down and click start speaking. So if we're doing a class project, they can listen to it. If they have headphones in, they can listen to the instructions on their own time and not feel behind, or if everyone's reading it together, they can actually retain the information because they're hearing it for themselves. And they can do this not only on websites but on Google Docs. If they're working in a group project and trying to keep up with everybody, it's not good to feel like you're behind. And audiobooks can be awesome because when students are all reading, if we're in a group discussion or a group reading and everybody is on the same page reading, you don't want to feel behind. And if you feel behind, you're not going to focus on what you're actually reading. So if you have an audiobook, it'll read it for you, and you can actually focus on what the words are saying and the information that the book has. So this graphic or organizer can be helpful for students with dyslexia because it really separates things and lets them focus on each sentence more. So say they read this Harry Potter story and I want them to think about the third chapter. So they would put the main idea of the third chapter, and then these arrows, there's 3 arrows, they point to these 3 boxes. They'd give 3 details about the main idea, and then on the bottom they would write a summary. So this is important because this helps, not only does it help the students like spread things out and separate it, but they actually think about what they're reading, and it all makes sense, especially when you put the details into the main idea.
To get on day to day in the world of words. My dyslexia means that I'm always looking at going at something sideways. Because if I can't spell that word, I'm always having to rethink, well, what can I spell?
If I came to a word that I didn't understand what it was, I would just skip it and then read the things around it and then try and work out generally maybe what the sentence might have been saying. Because if I stopped to try and get that word, everything that I've read before, it was gone.
Reading like linear format is not, it's too much for my eyes, so I'm gonna have to do like mind maps. It's an easier way for me to make my notes simpler and more memorable.
My handwriting is incredibly long and very slim, and I put it down to a subconscious of me really making an effort to distinguish certain letters.
If you have a slideshow in class, my teachers would give me that slideshow, but on paper. You can see what the next slide would be.
My friend goes, how did you do that text? And then you've responded like that. Aha, assistive technology.
Technology has made a big difference. I've got the voice activated software and I can come across so well, but it can also be a hindrance, like predictive text. So it predicts something, now I've presented with something else, and is that correct? Being dyslexic, it's just like my brain already hurts.
I'd say the main thing is you would want to have an understanding of your dyslexia. What strategies works out for you? Note-taking strategy, speed reading, mind maps. And once you do all these sort of stuff, it's gonna liberate you from those limiting dyslexic thoughts. It's just gonna eliminate all that.
To find out more about dyslexia, visit www.bdadyslexia.org.uk or www.dyslex.io.
After learning more about dyslexia, I'm glad I know the strategies to help one of my students one day with audio books, text-to-talk, bookmarks, larger font. All of these can help the students. And it is important to remember that just because a student has dyslexia doesn't mean that they have lower intelligence than any of the other students. I imagine it can be really frustrating to try to read something and it's all backwards in your brain. I was excited to learn about dyslexia because my dad actually has dyslexia, so it was interesting to talk about it. And I used to kind of laugh at him and call him an old man because he would be talking on his phone when he was to text me, he would speak into it. But I just understand it a little more now, and I hope you guys learned something. Thank you.